So it's getting worse.
Seems like. When I was in the barn with Tancha, they made me watch. They say they wanted to break me. What if this thing with Fatima, with the baby?
No, Dad, this isn't because of you.
But you don't know that.
You doing okay in there, boy?
What'd you say?
Dad, no.
Huh?
Hey, Dad.
Hey, no, stop. Huh?
Shut your fucking mouth. Shut your fucking mouth!
Hey, come on. Dad, just... Oh, you want...
What is up, everybody? Jeremy Eisenfire here, and welcome to the channel. Well, here we are, From fans. We are approaching the final 2 episodes in Season 3, and as we take a look at the penultimate episode, entitled Revelations, Chapter 1, I must say it wasn't exactly the penultimate episode I was hoping to see, but there were still some really good moments. Capped off with a mind-bending twist ending that has left the fandom wondering exactly what did we just see, which also included an incredible cameo by everybody's favorite monster, Smiley himself. And what do you know, the monsters can run if they want to. The episode picks up where episode 8 left off, with Fatima still missing as we see her locked up in the root cellar with Elgin beginning to feed her his own blood. Blood that Fatima was trying to resist at first but could not overcome the temptation, as it seems like her and the thing inside of her are craving it very badly, as she starts guzzling down the blood like a vampire, giving us even more evidence that what is growing inside of her is not human, with Elgin still believing that he is doing what is in Fatima and the entire town's best interest. Whatever manipulation tactics the kimono creature worked on Elgin certainly seemed to stick. One character, however, that I was very surprised with in episode 9 to see how much they are evolving and growing was Jim, of all people. First, at the medical clinic, after learning of Julie's ordeal at the ruins, Jim goes to confront Randall. And I'm sure I'm not the only one who recognized that Jim didn't approach him in an angry manner like he has done in the past, but instead was very level-headed and calm, and instead of scolding Randall about he and Julie being alone in the woods, he was more asking Randall how exactly he can reach out and connect with Julie, hoping that Randall can offer some kind of insight as to what she could potentially be going through, as he went through the same thing as well, which, if nothing else, shows a great deal of personal growth from Jim's character as a whole, indicating that he not only listened to Henry's advice, but is putting it into practice as well, as he also approaches Tabitha in the episode later on, offering her his full support in her quest for answers, which also is another great example of Jim evolving as a character, as he realizes Tabitha isn't something that needs to be fixed, but just a wife that needs help from her family. Now, while the episode doesn't exactly center around Boyd, we do get a few really good scenes from him in this episode as well, starting with him finally coming clean to his son Ellis about his Parkinson's, and how it is seemingly getting worse. And I also really enjoyed the scene of the nurse monster coming to the window to taunt Boyd at night, as at that point he was becoming very worried that this whole pregnancy of Fatima's might have been a product of this place trying to break him further. And I also thought it was really interesting how the nurse, motioning the gun being pointed to her own head, was completely improv and wasn't actually in the original script, which, if nothing else, shows great instincts on the actress's part playing the monster. And of course, Harold Perrineau played it incredibly well in return. But perhaps my favorite Boyd scene came between him and Kenny later on. At one point, Boyd gathers the entire town outside of the diner to inform them that Fatima has indeed gone missing, thanks to Donna having a change of heart and deciding to not tell the town about what she did with Tilly. And we did get a few really good Donna scenes in this episode as well, one in particular of her strolling through Colony House as she is remembering all of the good times that she had with Fatima, in particular her 1-year anniversary, as she realizes that Fatima not only means a great deal to her, but also means a great deal to Colony House as a whole as well, as she really was one of the few members who made that dusty old box feel like a home. But back at the diner, Boyd finishes delivering his speech and we see the entire town break off into pairs to go search for Fatima, where we get a phenomenal scene between Boyd and Kenny, as he fills Kenny in as well that his Parkinson's is getting worse, and that Kenny may need to step up and become the next leader sooner rather than later, and points to Kenny being the one that needs to fill this role, how it can't be the hothead Acosta or anybody else that rolls into town. Kenny is meant to fill Boyd's shoes when Boyd is gone, and I think Boyd is finally realizing that Kenny does have it within him to become that next sheriff, and I think he does as well. We've seen Kenny evolve and grow quite a lot himself over the past few seasons under Boyd's tutelage, to the point where he is almost ready to fill those shoes. And I also really enjoy the relationship between Boyd and Kenny, almost a little bit more than I enjoy it between Boyd and Ellis even. Even after everything they've been through, when Boyd really needs someone to grab his back, Kenny is always there, even at times when Ellis isn't. So it's nice to see how far these two have come, and how Boyd is very much honoring his promise he made to Tien Shen in her final moments, to look after Kenny, because he will be alone now. And I think it's safe to say that Kenny's parents would be very proud of the man that he's becoming. And for me, scenes like this are one of the main reasons why I don't mind having episodes that are a little bit slower in nature and don't have a whole lot of action or answers, as even in episodes like that, we get some really good character developing moments like this. Which is a clear indication to me that From is so much more than just a mystery show. It's a show about these characters at the end of the day, and the struggles and tribulations that they go through, and how they work together to solve them. Now, of course, I also love the mystery aspect of this show as well, and I definitely want to get some answers at some point, but I guess I'm just not in a huge rush to get those answers, as I really enjoy the human element of this show and the very keen insight into the basic human condition that it shows us. And speaking of the mystery elements, we also get a heavy dose of that in this episode as well, as we move over to Victor's storyline in episode 9. After the revelation in the previous episode when Victor came to the realization that it was his story that he heard from Christopher and the boy in white that sent his mother to her death. A revelation that Victor is not taking very well, as he is overcome with guilt blaming himself for his mother's death, which eventually sets him on the path to the boy in white. We see Victor take an axe from Colony House and head out into the woods with the intention of chopping down the bottle faraway tree, as he believes it's evil. But just as he gets a few swings off, the boy in white appears, begging him to stop. And one thing we notice is that the boy in white is starting to age more and more rapidly every time we see him, and he's no longer the young boy he was in Season 1. And when Victor asks why that is, the boy in white replies with, "Everything here is changing." And if nothing else, I thought it was a pretty clever technique on the writer John Griffin's part to explain why the boy in white looks so much older now as he did in Season 1. And the explanation itself does actually make sense and fits very well in with the story that we've seen up until this part, as we've seen many other aspects of Fromville changing since Season 1, not the least of which is the added snow and the cold weather that has moved in, which has never been here before. And unfortunately, problems like these always tend to arise when casting child actors in prominent roles on long-running series. It usually comes to a point where there's really only 3 options, starting with recasting a different actor in the role that's closer to the same age. And then, of course, there's also the option of writing in some sort of time jump in the story to explain the difference in age, with the third most common outcome being to kill the character off entirely. So if nothing else, it's pretty impressive that John Griffin managed to come up with his own explanation for this and avoided all 3 of those harder choices, an explanation that makes perfect sense within the confines of the story thus far. But as the boy in white shows up to urge Victor to stop, Victor starts pleading with him to fill him in on something, give him some kind of way that he can help everybody in town, with the boy in white playing everything pretty close to the chest, and saying how this time, you guys need to figure it out yourselves, how he's tried it once already in the past with Christopher, and it seemingly all went wrong, as apparently that time period ended with the entire town being slaughtered. It's seeming like the boy in white is only intervening at the most crucial of moments and only when it's absolutely necessary. For everything else, it seems like the town is mostly on their own, as all the boy in white says to Victor is to not chop down the faraway tree, which, if nothing else, indicates to us even further that it is going to be very important and vital to the overall ending of the story. After all, according to the boy in white, the answers to the ending are at the beginning, and if this all began with the Onkui children and the formation of the faraway tree, it stands to reason it's going to play a vital role. But next, the episode ends with a pretty big twist that has left the fandom wondering exactly what is going on, as we see Tabitha has been beckoned into the woods by one of the Onkui children, as she seems to be leading her to the root cellar. Now, on first glance, I thought the child was luring Tabitha here in an attempt to save Fatima, but now I'm starting to wonder if maybe she was luring here to uncover some sort of memory, or to potentially have the vision that she was about to see. as upon entering the root cellar, Tabitha instantly starts to feel a very strange feeling, the same strange feeling that she felt earlier in the episode when she first brushed past Victor and touched his arm. And upon entering the root cellar, she is greeted by none other than Victor himself, who is already down there, feeling guilty about the part he played in his mother's death, while he also seems to be reenacting that creepy scene from the Blair Witch Project. But as Tabitha is trying to calm Victor down, she is struck with yet another vision or memory, as she sees Miranda hugging young Eloise and young Victor just before she left the root cellar to go on her mission, followed by her also seeing the very end and tragic death of Miranda as well, as we learn that Smiley himself was the monster who took her out, as it seemed like Miranda was searching for the bottle faraway tree but couldn't reach it in time. But I suppose it wasn't exactly the act of seeing the vision itself that was so strange, but Tabitha's reaction to it that was the strangest of all, as she was really freaking out and was in a state of absolute shock, saying nothing but "that's impossible," indicating a strong emotional response on her part to what she was seeing, which has left the fandom with a few different options of interpretations of what we just saw, starting with Tabitha potentially being a reincarnated version of Miranda, and how she's just now remembering her previous life. And then there's another popular theory going around that Tabitha is actually Eloise, Victor's long-lost sister. And I myself have gone back and forth on this theory ever since its inception very early on in Season 2, where sometimes I see a lot of evidence pointing for this potentially very much being the case. But then again, you can't ignore some of the holes that are in this theory as well, not the least of which are Tabitha's age and her accent. And then of course there's a possibility that Tabitha was simply having a vision of what happened to Miranda. But considering the heavy emotional response Tabitha had to what she was seeing, I'm not sure if that's the case, especially with the added fact of her pushing Julie away and reaching for Victor after it happened, which if nothing else is just more evidence of Tabitha having some kind of deep connection to Victor and his family, especially when you consider all of the other similarities as well, like Jim and Tabitha having the same song that Henry and Miranda shared. And then of course there's the whole mystery with the bracelets as well. But definitely leave your thoughts and comments down below. What was your interpretation of this ending scene in episode 9, and what do you think Tabitha really is? Could she potentially be the reincarnated version of Miranda? Could she potentially be Eloise? Or could there be another explanation entirely? One thing's for sure, we certainly have quite a few different storylines that still need to be tied up and only one episode left to do it in, so I really hope the finale ends with a bang. And hopefully not only gives us some definitive answers, but also sets up some intriguing mysteries for Season 4 and beyond. But that is going to do it for my Episode 9 breakdown of Revelations Chapter 1. And if you enjoyed this video, don't forget to leave a like on your way out and consider subscribing to stay up to date on all of our upcoming episodes. And until next time, keep those tinfoil hats on, folks, and I will see you on the next one.
So it's getting worse. Parkinson's.
Jesus,
Look, I'm not saying this today, okay? Or tomorrow or a month from now. But I got a clock ticking on me. Yesterday, that clock started ticking a little faster. I need to know that you are going to step up and look after this place. Has to be you wearing this badge, and not some hothead like Acosta or anybody else who might come through here. You.
Okay, ding-dongs. If you don't subscribe to Jeremy Eyes and Fire, you're gonna spend the night in the box.